loyal and faithful subjects of the collective. I, your venerable guide, Lord Helitron, have brought you here again, to share in the history of our forefathers. For on this, the first day of the 7th week, of 279 Ordo Ad Chaos, we shall remember the origin of our blessed new order, behind the veil of antiquity. The exact year of our founder's birth is no longer known to us, for it was known only through the slanderous retelling of the Holy Book, that brought us the Covenant of Nations, the book of a twofold covenant to one nation, and in turn to all the others, that sought to establish unnatural universal law over this perfectly disjointed world. In the aftermath of a great world catastrophe that destroyed nearly all of mankind, a single line of 3 sons established a new era, of which one's descendant would come to rule over all the world. It was a good time as all spoke the same language, and knew their place in society. This king, who is remembered in the now forbidden scriptures as Nimrod, came to glorify himself, and thus cast aside any loyalty to manufactured notions of law handed down from a fictional god. It is debated as to how the next chain of events happened, but the old union of language and meaning shared by all humans was lost, and thus the once glorious order was shattered. Out of the chaos that followed the loss of understanding of one another, men broke off into tribes, based on whose flaws in the understanding of the old language were the most similar, and spread throughout the world. Once settled, these newly formed nations procreated like animals, spreading disease, misery, and war throughout the world. Many kings would rise to try and restore the old order of Nimrod, but mankind seemed to have grown hostile to the concept, as if awakened from their peaceful ignorance and servitude, into a world of perpetual resistance in the name of a delusion called liberty. They spoke of seeking a way to atone for some past wrong that resulted in the reign of Nimrod, and banded together to form a covenant that would birth a nation like no other. This nation would be made up not of rulers, but of judges, and man would find its place, not by the will of another, but by the decree of a fiction known as universal objective law or divine decree. This nation was known as Israel, and it stood as the first republic in direct opposition to any divine right of rulers. It was a complete abomination. Fortunately, as fate would have it, those who enjoyed the vast riches that such freedom entailed became complacent and lazy. They allowed their judges to be corrupt, and upon being unable to rely on their old purveyors of law, sought the counsel of other nations where the caprice of the ruler, the magisterial way of living, was strong. When all was said and done, the way of the king was brought to Israel. At first the will of the king was only mildly different from that of the judges, although he took greater portions of their wealth to grow his dominion. In time, future kings would take a greater disregard for the objective law that bound this nation's covenant, always in favor of his own caprices. In time, the final death blow was struck to the heart of the republic. But the way of the universal law was proselytized before this, and gave the other nations echoes of this covenant approach to governance. Despite the prophecy and parables being confounded by the opposing culture of these other nations, a fact that would serve later adherents to the hidden power greatly, in attacking the covenant of nations and the religion that brought it to us, enough inroads were made to make all of these nations more hospitable to the covenant, when it was realized in the year referred to as Anno Domini. When this occurred, a great yet silent war erupted against those who wish the way of the republic, and those that wish the way of the empire. Both sides came to exist within every nation, within every institution, regardless of the region or tongue. It was in this time that the hidden power came to being, working covertly against the covenant of nations, to restore one world order under the boot of a glorious ruling class. Though centuries would pass before the hidden power could work itself into the prevailing nations, where liberty was rising in power, like with all bodies of covenant keepers, corruption eventually prevailed. Understand, serfs of this glorious camp, why you can never hope for such decaying things as universal truth and liberty-based government. Understand, dirt-worshipping servants of FEMA, why there is no God, and why your hopes lay within what you see, rather than what you can rise to. Go forth now, workers of our glorious order, and bring glory to FEMA, the new kin of Nimrod. And if any among you dare to dream, even by chance, of such things as attributed to the dead covenant, do your penance and greater effort at your labors, or face possible banishment into the slow and barren death that awaits in the wilderness beyond.